I have another quilt inspired layout for you today. I'm going to be using some brand new products that I just got from Carta paper. I love this collection. It's called Practically Perfect, and it's just the sweetest collection. I'm going to be using those quilt blocks as my inspiration piece. They are from Basic Gray, which should, jog some people's memories maybe, because Basic Gray used to do paper lines and scrapbook products, but now they do fabrics and quilt blocks. And I have found tons of inspiration on their Instagram because I like to take quilt blocks and make them out of paper. So if you also love quilt blocks and like to make them out of paper, they are a really great Instagram feed to follow. So I chose these two blocks from their feed, and I'm going to use two 4x4 photos and then create two 4x4 quilt blocks to go on the other side. And I'm going to create a grid layout with these quilt blocks. So I'm starting with 4x4 pieces of two of the patterns from the collection. I cut them down, and then what I did was I just cut one of the blocks into 2x2 squares so that I could create that look right there with the quilt blocks.
Mom, I'm tired.
Sorry about that. My youngest has a cold and he's being a little whiny today. So what I decided was I wanted to do the circle in the middle, but my punch was too small. I needed something a little bit bigger. So I pulled out my Creative Memories cutting mat and cutting tools, and I'm picking out a circle size that I think will work really well for the circle inside that first quilt block. So I'm going to just cut the thing. If you would like to play along with me and make a layout using these quilt blocks as well, be sure to head over to my Instagram. It's linked below, and there you can grab a screenshot of the inspiration piece so you can have it handy beside you as you create these quilt blocks. And be sure to tag me in your photos because I would love to see what you do and how you create with these quilt blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this circle into fours, and I didn't cut it perfectly. I tried, but I failed. But that's okay, because when you miscut paper, that is just an excuse to put an embellishment right there where they don't quite match up. All of the different shapes of my quilt blocks I am inking them up with Vintage Photo Distress ink. I wanted that kind of shadowing that a distress ink gives, and I really liked the idea of doing the brown. I know that sometimes people don't like the brown ink on some of the blue shades, but it doesn't bother me. I think it looks nice, and it just kind of warmed the page up really nicely. So there's my first quilt block, all done. Well, kind of all done. We're going to work a little bit more on those, but first we're just getting the paper layers down on it. So the next one was a little bit harder for me to put together. I had to kind of, practice and figure out what sizes I could use to create the middle part of this quilt block. And oh my goodness, I can't talk today, you guys. I keep saying and I'm so sorry. I'm going to try really hard to stop doing that now. Not sure what's going on with that. So what I decided to do is I end up getting my 1-inch square punch. So the first square punch goes in the middle, and then you want to cut the rest of the squares into fours, and that into four pieces. Yep, and then on the diagonal, and then you can use those little triangles you've created to finish up the quilt blocks. So I had to use the punches and tools I had at my disposal. I didn't want to go, searching for a bigger square punch in a store or anything like that. So I just went with my 1-inch one, and it did work. It worked very well. But what I'm going to do to kind of make it look more like the picture is I'm going to go ahead and cut and ink and put these pieces down, and then I'm going to trim. I think I trimmed about 1/4 of an inch from all 4 sides of this quilt block, and then I'm going to back it with a darker sheet of paper. And I decided to go with this bright kind of royal blue color because I liked the dark against my quilt block. I'm just going to go ahead and ink everything up again, and now my quilt blocks are, well, they're almost finished. So I'm going to grab my photos and my 8.5 by 11 cardstock and clean up a little bit. And then we're going to go into what I want to do next with these quilt blocks. So what I decided to do is I want to stitch. I just want to stitch around the edges of both of the quilt blocks. If you have a sewing machine and you don't break them like me, this would be a great way to add some sewing to your layout. If you are like me and you need to hand stitch because you break sewing machines, then I decided just to do the outside of the quilt block, but of course you could go in here and really add lots and lots of stitching to these quilt blocks. They are a great opportunity to add that handmade look. But since I was just hand stitching, I just decided on some white thread and to stitch around the edges of the quilt blocks. I used 6 strands. Usually I use 3, but I kind of started with 3 and I felt like it wasn't popping enough. So I used the full 6 strands of embroidery floss, and I think that it really helped to make that stitching kind of stand out. So there is the stitching all around ready to go, and now we can complete the layout. So this is a very paper heavy design. We don't need a ton of embellishments or a ton of layers. I'm going to start by adding a strip of those 2 main pattern papers that I picked from the collection to use. I'm going to ink the edges, and I want to make the bottom border across thicker and the top border across thinner, because I set these photos up with the idea that I want to add a little bit of embellishment to the bottom, so the 4 grid photos are not completely centered on the page, which was intentional on my part because I wanted to be able to add a little bit of a cluster down there in the bottom left. So I cut these strips at 1 inch wide, but of course at the top what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my glue tape runner, and then I'm going to make the top strip just as wide as my tape runner, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. For the titling on my page, I chose these adorable freckled fawn puffy alphabet stickers. They recently had a lovely sale on their website, and I stocked up on all the puffy stickers. So I'm going to go ahead and put the title for this page is just going to be Meeting Ella. This is my brand new niece that was born in February, and this was the hospital on the day she was born, the first time I got to hold her, and my brother-in-law snapped some really cute, sweet photos. So there really isn't any journaling or anything like that I have to write down. It's just me and her getting to know each other. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and add that title. On this page, it looks like the title is like really not visible, but in real life you can see it very, very clearly. It looks really nice, and I just kind of snuggled it in on the corner of that photo. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of flicking through all of these die cuts. So I have the ephemera pack, I have the frames and tags pack, and then I also have the enamel dots. And so I'm just going to go through and pick out some of the ones I want to use. To be perfectly honest, I wanted to use them all because they were so cute. This is such a fun, adorable collection. I just love it. And so I'm going to cut apart this frame and use it more as a border down at the bottom and up at the top. And I'm going to create 3 just very small embellishment clusters. One over the title of my photo, one over the quilt block, the one that I kind of had that was off cut, just a little off, a little crooked. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to add a couple of embellishments as well. And I'm just going to ink those up and tuck them in. And then I decided I wanted some more circular elements. I have some circular elements with that one quilt block, and I wanted to add just a little bit of 1 or 2 more. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to punch some circles from that pink pattern paper. Up at the top there where those 2 tabs are, there was a lot of blue on blue, and so I thought the pink would really kind of cut the blue on blue and break it up a little bit. So now I have all of my embellishment clusters inked up and set down, and I'm just going to sprinkle some enamel dots around the page for something a little bit different that's not paper. I hope you are enjoying this fun mini-series. I am going to try to get a couple more of these videos up during the month of April because they are really fun. I'd love for you to play along. If you could give me a thumbs up, let me know that you like the idea of this little mini video series. I would love that. I would like to say a huge hello to all of our new subscribers. My channel's been growing. Every time I go in, I have a couple more, and I'm so excited to have you all here with me on my creative journey. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!